This title of this tape is Education versus, I don't know, spiritual development. Um, right. What I mean by spiritual development, I don't mean someone that he prays over his meal and he goes to church and all that stuff. Those are all fine things. I mean, I suppose. I mean, everybody's at different levels of development and understanding. But a true spiritual person or true religious, as the term was often used back during the Dark Ages and you know so on, was someone that was really had contact, with the realm of spirit and visions and stuff like that, and found out things. I mean, usually when these people find out things, they usually do a fair amount of writing. Like Emanuel Swedenborg, or if you want, John the Revelator, Apostle Paul, Zarathustra. From what little I know about that individual, uh, perhaps St. Francis, but not very much. There, St. John of the Cross, prolific writer, and then Watchman Nee, more contemporary times. But how many of these guys actually were able to be applied to areas having to do with science? Um, it's hard to say which ones got up through the spirit or just figured it out through interpolation. Francis Bacon comes to mind in terms of figuring out things through interpolation. He knew enough of the basic stuff, and then extrapolated and said, well, if A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C, and therefore we have another idea or another concept or patent or whatever. Same thing probably could be said of Isaac Newton and then of course Galileo. Some people had a sense that they knew something was true, and they went out to try to prove it. See, they had a sense, they knew. Where did they get that from? One of them was Alexander Graham Bell, the one was supposedly Einstein. But the problem with Einstein, or at least the problem I have with Einstein, is that I feel that Einstein plagiarized his information from others. There was a guy named Cohen who taught him for, I think, a period of 8 years, like that, something to do with gravity. But then right after he understands gravity, he goes and writes a paper he gets credit for, and no one ever hears about this man named Cohen. Probably some other Jewish chap. I think the last name Cohen is a Jewish name. Then you have Lewis Carroll, who did the Alice in Wonderland thing, which shows the parallel universe pictures. With the rabbit on the other side of the track and pointing backwards against the rabbit that first started on the track. Perfect relativity model, but 1865, not 1905, when special theory came out. 1865 and not 1930, I think, is when the general theory came out. By the way, it took the Nobel Prize committee 17 years to figure out what Einstein was talking about before they gave him the Nobel Prize. Max Planck, on the other hand, who did the thing having to do with quantum mechanics, which is still, even to this day, it's not really fully understood. But even back then, I think he came up with his in 1917. I think the following year he got the Nobel Prize for that. But irrespective of if these people get accolades like Nobel Prize and stuff like that, maybe that's to enhance the idea that the things could be useful and so on. I'm not quite sure if that's altogether the case. But what happens is we have this pride that develops in the area of education, that ought not to be there. Oh, look at me, I went to school, and I'm part of the good people, and I had, well, yeah, you had help and you got education, and you're also ultimately, whether you know it or not, even whether you even want to or not, you're going to help out other people. You come up with a patent or an idea that's going to make a lot of people's lives simpler or not. You basically are fulfilling the seeking first the kingdom of God. but but maybe not want to be associated with people who are religious. And I can understand all those sentiments, because just because people are part of the group by let's say by way of marriage, as it were. Not that that's the case, but I'm using that as a simile example. Just because those things exist doesn't mean that those of us who applied ourselves in proficients, that's another term that was used back years ago, a proficient, um, is a case where you want to hang out with these people, because by and large, everybody wants to pick your brain, and they want to find out what makes you different than they. And then once they figure out you're just like they are, I say, oh well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that it's even to be a truly religious person that has contact requires an extreme amount of discipline, much more than education. When I had it first start to happen to me in my early years, I had to drop out. It's just too much. I couldn't do it simultaneously. I mean, I would just get wiped out emotionally, and of course I would make growth spurts that would go on for every 6 months, sometimes every several months, and so it was hard to have the two of them to work together on that. But once you become a finely honed instrument, you become another Jesus, or you become another Einstein, if you want, depending on how you want to look at it. Then you can start cranking out all kinds of things, and things that are going to benefit you and the rest of the world and everybody else for time immemorial. Some things I feel couldn't have happened that are happening now because the universe went through a restructuring, or has gone through a slow restructuring. I mean, how do I know that? Well, first I knew it because I sort of sensed it from things I read and sort of pieced things together, and then I saw it. And I saw things happening down the road. The very same things that some of these guys from these other planets, like from Era, have talked about, except they actually can travel to those times with their ships when that. I just go there in my mind, or my spirit, whichever, astral travel if you want. You can do the same thing. It's no big deal. How do you know these things are true? Well, your witness or your spirit would tell you, not just because it sounds nice. But of course, it does that too, and it does sound nice. So, both sides of the camp, where you're highly educated, you're highly spiritual. Yeah, either case, you have a lot of discipline, and you can find out a lot of things. And I rely upon my spirit thing much more than my education. I can find out so many things so fast. And you can too. Just so many things so fast. Multiple questions can be accomplished in a matter of a few seconds, as opposed to hundreds of hours of study. But that's all right too. Sometimes I want to find out on my own. I don't want to be told, and that is equally valuable too.